Hi, I'm Amira Khalid, and I'm the creator and host of the Powerful Podcast series, produced in collaboration with the Canadian Business Council Dubai. On this podcast, I will be interviewing a diverse group of Canadians and have thoughtful discussions that I hope will resonate with other Canadians in the region and across the globe. The Powerful Podcast series will spotlight not only high-profile Canadians who are movers and shakers, but also individuals who are hardworking, creative, innovative, and entrepreneurial with stories worth sharing. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you enjoy listening to the Powerful Podcast series. And if you do, please subscribe to the Canadian Business Council Dubai's YouTube channel. You can also follow the podcast on the Canadian Business Council's social media channels on LinkedIn and Instagram. My guest today is Randah Taher. As a culture designer, Randah helps organizations nurture a culture of innovation and experimentation. For the past 15 years, she has worked with organizations to help get their innovation department, strategy, programs, or teams in place. From creative problem-solving processes to biomimic analogies to service and design thinking systems to edutainment games and creativity tools, Randah facilitates programs and challenges and trains internal entrepreneurs on creativity tools and innovation methodologies so that they can create shifts and adapt to changing environments. Thank you so much for being on my show, Randah. Randah, you have studied creativity, innovation, and change leadership. Did you always know that this would be your academic direction?
Thank you, Amira, for this question, and thank you for hosting me on this podcast. A quick answer to you is no. I got in and out a lot of academic programs, and it seems that I keep skipping my assignments to go and learn more about the mind. So for some reason, I was always attracted to the mind and how it works and how do we come up with ideas, and creativity kept coming in and out. When I moved from my home in Montreal to Toronto, that's when I discovered that there was a master's in creativity, and it just blew my mind. It's like, this is exactly what I've been doing all my life, even without knowing. I was studying and I was doing workshops and I was, writing about it. And then suddenly now I have a name for it, and it's actually a master's of science. So there is some serious business going behind it. And so this is how I ended up taking that master's. And from then I've been in this domain.
Randah, I find your profile and work very fascinating. Talk us through some of your theories and work. And what is it about the work that you're doing that's disruptive?
Okay, I am a facilitator. I'm an innovation facilitator, which is usually confused by being a coach or being a consultant. So what exactly are you? What do you do? So as a problem-solving facilitator, I help guide you through the thinking when you're trying to solve a problem. So I could use a number of different methods to do that. One of the theories that really changed the way of my focus, because I've always been in creative training with people and all that, person, the creative product, the creative process, and the press. And by the press, they mean the environment that surrounds all these things. So when I work with people only and we do only training and then they go back to their work and nothing gets done, it's because, the process is not helping them to be more creative. And so I started there, and then I said, no, I'm going to work on the process. So I went into strategic planning and design, and we started to create all these different things, less rules, less steps, a more experimental environment. But then if we didn't provide the people with the right tools, and there are these steps and they don't know what to do with it, right? And then there are always those companies where they focus on results and the product or the service that they provide to the world, which is absolutely amazing, but it doesn't matter how they get there. So once I took a good look at it, I said, you know what? I am going to start with the foundation. It is the culture of the organization. If the culture is conducive to creativity, then the people will find themselves even more creative than they already are, because I believe everyone is creative, and they will be able to experiment with all these different ideas that they have, and so the processes will help them, and then the end result is still as amazing, or if not more. So my focus went into the culture, and I'm still a facilitator, so I design the culture and I facilitate the innovation that happens within it.
As an innovation facilitator, then, what does a normal working day look like for you, and what challenges do you encounter?
So I'm either delivering something. So it could be working on a strategy, or it could be conducting a training, or it could be, creating all these touch points within the organization that help especially like-minded people to meet internally. So it could be delivering something, it could be following up on projects, finding the right contacts that will support the different projects. So it could be that, or I could be writing. I have a weekly diary post that goes to my email list. I write on LinkedIn, doing a podcast like here with you, Amira. So it's creating content, and it's always content about the creative environment within organizations, in addition to what happens at home with my 3 kids and all that. So that would be my normal day. Challenges, there are a lot of them, and I think the most important one is education, in terms of people understanding what exactly you do and how it can help. So education in terms of why is culture really more important than just providing someone with training. Trying to explain this for something that is intangible is one of the challenges, right? Trying to explain what a facilitator does, getting people to lose themselves a little bit in the process. They're usually uptight. They are not ready to come up with those creative ideas because they don't see the value of them. So those would be the challenges in the delivery part. And in my personal part, getting all this in addition to sharing this content with the world is a challenge in time management, right? So I face this on a daily basis.
Randa, what is the target market for your work, and is it primarily focused on large global corporations?
My target is the type of organization that is ready and willing to invest time, resources, and money in its culture. So it doesn't matter if it's small or large. So I worked with large organizations. I worked with EY and Pfizer. I worked with government entities like Abu Dhabi government, like Dubai government. I worked with small companies, right? So companies and startups. I worked in fintech industry. I worked in different industries. So it's the team or the company or the organization, if you want to say, or even the nonprofit organization that have innovation. They really want to go beyond the surface. So they don't want this buzzword anymore. They want to learn how to problem solve creatively, and they want to know how to become truly an inspiring place to go. You really want to wake up and go to work because everything just fits in beautifully. And it's not easy, Amira. It's not easy to get this type of organization because it takes energy, it takes a sense of adventure. It requires some confidence to do something different than the other organization because it's very intangible what we're working with. And so being open to complexity and being open to ambiguity because you don't know how it will end.
So, Randa, in your experience, what kind of personalities tend to shake things up in an organization?
There are certain types of people in organizations. I call them entrepreneurs. Other people call them corporate innovators. They might not call themselves any of that, but they have an entrepreneurial spirit. They really like to do things differently, but they don't want to do it on their own. They are happy with where they work. They're often misunderstood unless they are, pretty advanced in their career, so people listen to them. But then those people require the most support. So if I am able to find a way to connect them so that they learn from each other, so that they grow together, then I think they will shake everything in that organization absolutely to the better. But they need the whole organization, and especially the top leadership need to be ready for this shaking.
Tell us about your journey from Canada to the UAE. What brings you here, and how has your experience been so far?
So I came in 2009, and that year, so we came in the spring, and that year it was extremely cold in Toronto. And then when we arrived here, it was extremely hot already in May. So I often joke about, I feel like a hamburger. You got me out of the freezer and into the oven straight away, no thawing. So that's my instant experience. And when I moved here, I came. I completely changed industries, not only continents. So I was developing a leadership program for the city of Toronto for youth working in the nonprofit sector. And then I moved here to teach at a university, and I was teaching architecture engineering. It was because of my experience in design thinking. Back then, nobody used that term here. Nobody knew what I was talking about, right? So I used the word design process, and it works brilliantly, right? But it's the same idea. It's like, how do you think of ideas and how do you translate an idea into a design? And it just happened to be in the industry of architecture. This is what brought me here. So the sense of adventure, number one, going into a field that I haven't experimented before, and working in a completely different environment. So me and my family were pretty excited about, okay, let's see what happens next. And now it's been like, what, 12 years now, counting. We'll see. We're still seeing.
Changing continents and moving from Canada to Dubai, what were some of the challenges you experienced?
Toronto is pretty diverse, right? And in my line of business, I thrive on diversity because this is how you become more creative. This is where new analogies are created, new context. This is why if you are even, and I discovered it through my studies, that even when I think in a different language, so I do speak more than one, right? So, but then I realized that I've always worked in English. And then when suddenly I experimented and I started to think of ideas in Arabic, it completely changed the way that I come up with ideas. It just opened way many doors because those words that you think of open to different contexts. And this is where I thrive in. So when I moved here, it opened way more different connections than I previously had, right? Because I'm starting to see the different analogies in different ways. And Dubai being smaller than Toronto with the same diversity, but it means that you connect with diverse people way more often here. And I think this not only helps in having more of a more creative environment, it also helps with applying those like very dry theories in very rich contexts. And if people are open to it, beautiful things will come out of it. So I wouldn't say it was a challenge per se. It was fun to experiment. The only challenge, the funniest challenge that I had is my walking speed. So I'm a fast walker, and in Toronto, you need to cross the street pretty fast. And then when I came here and I started walking the same speed, I started bumping into people a lot. People are slower because, they learned how to conserve their energy in this hot environment. And it took me a while to slow down. And then a few years after I went back home, and I was walking in the street and everyone was bumping into me because I realized I was way too slower than the others. But I think being aware of that is just an adjustment. And so when I go back home, I start running. And when I come here, I just shuffle.
Apart from having to walk at an extraordinary speed, what else do you miss about Canada?
I miss family. I have family there. I miss them a lot. I miss having access to all sorts of activities that happen. You just walk out and then, oh, there's an outdoor concert that's happening, or even one person just playing an instrument in the metro and all that. And I think having those groups of people, whether you meet them in person or you meet them online, who are doing so many different things that are completely out of your normal day, is what I miss. I miss that a lot, right? You have a lot of quirky people there that you meet, and I miss them.
Since we're talking about Canada, the Canadian Business Council is such a great support system for all the Canadians in the region. What does CBC Dubai mean to you?
It is true. And I love the events that they put on, and I try to attend as many as possible. And I think beyond just networking, I mean, you connect with people who understand your point of reference, especially when you're joking. They immediately get it, right? You connect with businesses, whether small businesses or larger one, who understand the way that you work and sometimes see your frustration of why things are not working, because you have to adapt them here a lot. And so they see the frustration, and so they see they might have a few tricks. You can change this, but then you don't lose your authentic voice because of that. So they can give you the right advice, and you can give the right advice, because I come also from an Arabic background. So I can provide a few of those cultural tips that some of the Canadian companies that are opening branches here or they're extending here could use. So I think is beyond just network, is actually learning from each other. So I value them for that.
Randa, my last question is, what would be your career advice?
Please don't. Don't follow because I mean, it sounds amazing, but it's filled with frustrations, because you are going into an uncharted territory. People don't use the same language that you use when you are describing the things that you're describing. So you have to constantly change that. And some organizations don't value that. So I've had my experience working inside organizations, and I'm always the black sheep. I'm always the person who doesn't fit because I see things differently. But jokes aside, if that's where you are, what you're interested in, I think I followed the breadcrumbs of where my brain takes me. So it could be going deeper into, okay, this is a specific industry that I want to stay in, and I want to explore how to make it better, which is beautiful for those who prefer that. In my case, I stayed within the process, but then I experiment within so many different industries. So that provided me the width that I was looking for. So I think it depends on the person. It depends on what you want and how you want to experiment with it. As long as you stay within the experimentation mindset, going or following this roadmap, but without a fixed idea of what the outcome will be, because you cannot guarantee that. So it could be going into one industry and exploring all the different things that can support in that industry, or it could be focusing on your skill set and the way that you do things, but then doing it in so many different fields or domains.
Thank you so much for being on my show, Randa. Once again, it was a pleasure having you.
It was mine, Amira. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Powerful Podcast series. If you'd like to reach out, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn at Amira Khalid ACCA. See you in the next episode.